Slam, and welcome to another edition of American Home Repair. On today's program, we'll be installing hardwood floors using the glue-down method. We'll get started right after this. Welcome back, everybody. On today's program, we'll be installing hardwood floors using the glue-down methods. We'll be doing two types of floors today. Parquet flooring, which are laminated pieces put together, and strip plank flooring. This is a cut piece. These are normally around 40 inches long. They're tongue and groove, both of them. The plank flooring has a plywood backing on it, and it has a veneer, as you can see right here, of hardwood floor, usually oak, over the top of it. The parquet flooring is solid hardwood. Now, each one of these may take a different type of adhesive. One for hardwood floors only, one for plywood back floors only. So read the directions, make sure you have the right mastic before you begin the job. The trials may vary as well, but generally either trial will work, okay? There's a couple other tools I wanted to show you. Here's a utility pry bar for removing baseboards. Also, this is a pull bar. Pull bar works mainly for your plank flooring to get in close next to the walls so you can pry it or pull it into the adjoining plank. You hit it on the back. I'll show you how to use this later. It pulls it by hitting it on the back and snugs it up real good and tight. Also, an undercut saw is very nice to have. You can use a regular saw, but these are for cutting the trim around the doors. You want to cut it so your hardwood floor will slide under the trim. This one has a curved handle, works very nicely for that. We'll show you how to use that as well. Most hardwood floors can be cut with any type of saw. Power saws generally save you a lot of time, but remember to have thorough training on them before you begin any project like this, and wear eye protection, okay? Well, if you're ready to get started, so am I. I want to let you know that we're going to be installing this parquet floor over an existing oak plank flooring. It's a 35-year-old floor. We decided it was nice and clean, didn't have any wax on it, so we're going to go ahead and install right over the top of it. We happen to like the parquet better in this particular instance. We're also going to choose the simplest way to lay out the parquet floor. We're going to lay 2 rows to start off with along the longest wall, and then we're going to lay 2 rows in the opposite direction to the adjacent wall, as you can see here. After I laid out the 2 floors, I took my framing square and checked the measurement, or checked the 90-degree angle, and saw that it was right on the money, so we know we look good there. Then I checked that I wanted to make sure I had a 3/8-inch gap from the starting wall between the wall and the first course, the first row of parquet flooring, and as you can see here, it's 24 3/8 inches, including the gap between the wall. Okay, we know the tiles are exactly 1 foot square, so I'm going to measure 2 feet plus a 3/8-inch gap on the other side by the wall. We're going to give a gap for expansion. Make my mark on the floor right here. Then I'm going to place a nail, which I will then take my chalk line, move down to the other mark, and snap my first line. Okay, I'm going to hold it nice and taut. Check my mark. Good snap. Okay. I always use a chalk line just as a guide to apply my adhesive. I never trust a snapped line. I prefer to use a good straight edge. And what I'm going to do now, what I normally do, is I recheck my chalk line. If it's right on the money, I'm going to pound a couple of nails in there and take a good straight edge. Here's a piece of lumber that I've got, a piece of oak trim. I've checked it as straight as an arrow. I've put 2 nails in it. I'm going to butt this right up to the nails I'm going to apply right in that chalk line. then I know that is going to be straight. I'm never going to use that chalk line just as a guide, particularly with hardwood flooring like this. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, guess what? My line was off, and I'll tell you why. This floor is in real good shape, but there could be a little wave down there. It could be an up and down a little bit, which when you snap that chalk line, it'll throw your line off. I've already pounded a nail on the original mark I made here. I know that's true. I was off about 1/8 of an inch. When I snapped that line got over about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to remark, remeasure here. I'm going to set this right where it should be. Better check that again. I had to move it. Yep, still there. I'm going to place a nail. I've got the straight edge butted up over there. I'm going to place a nail right here. I'm going to tie it down there good and tight. Tie that down there good and tight. Remove these nails. Now I can apply my mastic from here over. I'm not going to try to hit the wood, but get real close to it. And my first row of tiles will butt right to that straight edge. It gives it a good steady thing. In fact, I'm going to put another nail right here. Then we're ready to start applying our mastic. There we go. Okay. Okay, the trowel I'm going to use today here is a V-notch trowel. It has a 1/2 inch spacer right here. It's a 1/2 inch between there. It's 3/16 of an inch wide V with a 1/4 inch deep V notch. This is a specific trowel that the manufacturer suggested. Each manufacturer will have its own suggestion on types of trowels, whatever works best for their products. So you should probably figure out which one you want to use. Now you may get a mastic with one type of trowel and a parquet floor manufacturer with another type of trowel, but generally they'll both work in both cases, okay? To apply the mastic, and this is a mess, this is a gooey type of mastic, it's a good idea to have yourself a cloth with some a cloth that is saturated with mineral spirits, because you'll get this all over the place. It's not easy to work with. But what you'll do is you'll apply the adhesive to several areas, or quite a long area, and you allow it to dry or set up for approximately 45 minutes to an hour so that it gets tacky. Now with ceramic tile you would never do that. You want to do it before. You want to apply it before. So same difference. Start just applying your adhesive like this. Now I'm going to get close to this, but I don't want to touch that wood, because if you get it on the wood, it'll get on the tile. So that's the one thing you have to be careful when you're using a straight edge like this. Okay? Just keep going on down the road here. This is tricky. It's kind of like when you slurp your spaghetti, you want to do it with some class, you know, because it'll get gooey and get all over the place. So it's kind of a sticky situation. But anyway. Okay, as you can see here, I've gone ahead and spread my mastic over the entire first course. I'm allowed to set up for about 45 minutes. I'll come back in every 10 minutes or so and touch the mastic with my finger. If the mastic comes back on my finger, it's still too early to start setting my tiles. Okay, because this was the last area that we spread, I'm going to give it the old finger test. Touched it. There's nothing coming back on my finger. It's time to start setting the flooring. We'll go down to the other end and begin. Okay, you want to start off making sure you have plenty of materials around you. You don't want to get up and walk around too far, okay? Take your first tile. Remember, we want to be about 3/8 of an inch away from the wall. We're going to set that first one up against our board, just like this. Now, you have to make sure, because there's an old tongue sticking out here and there's a groove over there, so make sure that tongue is flat on that piece right there. I'm going to slide it in place. It's grabbing real nicely. Let's place our first one in. When you place them in, you don't want to slide and gush them around. Place them almost touching the one next to it and just start setting them in. In other words, I'm not starting way over there and squishing it or pushing it all together. This stuff really grabs, so make sure you do it right the first time. It's going together nicely. You can see how fast this goes. Well, the hardest part really is spreading the mastic. But as I said before, this is the fastest and best way, I think, to change the look of a room is using parquet floor or any strip wood flooring. It's economical when you consider there's really a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot to do. You just apply your mastic and just start slapping it in. You don't have to grout it. It's a done deal. Tomorrow, I'll move some furniture in here. First one in just beautifully. I'm starting the second course here. As I said before, get as close to the adjoining tongue and groove and then slide it in. It takes a little bit of work. You have to kind of persuade it a little bit. Okay. I wanted to show you one other thing here. I've got a little block of wood I've made up here and a small rubber mallet. And I'm going to place that little notch. It's got a little point on it. I'm going to place a little notch right just above that. I'm just tapping it ever so slightly to persuade some of these to go where they should be going. Okay? And then you have to be very careful. You want to look right on these little lines, right at the little cross points, right at the hairs. I'll see if I can get a shot. Let me put in a couple more of these guys. Okay, notice how I'm just dropping it in close to where I want it. And pulling it towards me. You don't want to start way back here and push it in. You want to drop it right where it belongs, as close as you can get it. And bring it in. Okay, to make the cuts around this vent, I'm going to line the tile right up to it, make sure it's flush right there. I'm going to make a mark here. I know that's where one cut will be. This is where the other cut will be. I've got two nice marks there. Pick it up, move it over. I'm going to lay it over here. Not so it's touching the mastic, but I'm making sure it's taut right there. And I know there's a mark right here. And this stuff will, this felt pen will come off easy enough. So I'm going to line it up here and line it up there. And make my mark right like that. Actually goes right along that joint. And I can freehand this easy enough. Okay, now that we have these marked, I'm going to go ahead and make a cut using a small table saw here. It's very simple with a table saw. Folks, if you've not had the opportunity to use one of these saws, please stick to the hand tools, okay? All righty, we're going to set this thing down. Got our goggles in place. We'll begin our cut. This is commonly called a plunge cut. Make your first two line cuts down the middle, down the lines. I'll get to this point, I'll cut the machine down. And many times it'll fall apart because it's just glued together on the back. And this will happen. Don't worry about it. They stick back together remarkably well when you glue them back down. I'm going to lay this now down here. I'm going to put the guide along the edge. Basically what I want to do is I want to measure from the line we're going to cut to the edge of the board, which is 3 3/4 inch. I'm going to put it over the blade, as you can see here. I'm going to move it up to 3 3/4 inch, the guide, lock the guide down. Now I'm going to very carefully, first of all, I'm going to lower this blade just a hair, which there's a little notch down there, and I'm going to lay the tile up over the hole, over the blade, and I'm going to start the saw up. And slowly drop it onto the blade. I've lined it up very easily. I'm gradually adjusting the blade up and holding it down. I'll bring it over this way a hair, bring it back the other way a hair, and I'll turn the saw off. I'll carefully break it away. There you have your cut. Very simply done. Once again, should only be attempted by those who have had the training and the proper knowledge when using these tools. Let's get back in the other room and place them in. Let's push the other one in. Okay. I gave myself a little bit of room because the vent didn't seem to fit before. It was pretty tight, and I'm going to change vents anyway, so there we go. The last two pieces in this course, we call a course, is the area you laid out to install your parquet tiles. It's just a term used, and some people have asked me that in the past, and that's the answer. Okay. The last cut for the first course is now in, and there you go. Well, there you go. The first course is complete. Right now I'm going to remove the straight edge. I'm not going to use it any longer because this is now our straight edge. I'm going to measure out 3 feet, glue up 3 feet, and begin down at that end again and start laying the first course in, then the second course in, and so on. Okay? As you can see, I've completed about 5 rows of tile, 5 feet out from the wall. My last course was 3 feet wide. I spread the glue this way, then I spread it off this way at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to continue on. As you can see, I'm using a kneeling board. A kneeling board works very well for distributing your weight across the new floor. Your toes, as you're pushing a lot of pressure, and your toes will dig into the floor and move the tiles around, so you don't want that. So we're going to continue on. Okay, once again, if you see any marks, any glue, any stuff that's, showing, it rubs out real easily and cleans up real nicely. So get it while you're there. This guy is just stubborn. This is an area that I suspect has a bump in it because these last few tiles, in this just one area, have been stubborn. So I get the persuader out. And I persuade it to get in place. Okay, let's move on. Slapping them in. Okay, here we are. We've tiled everything up. We've gone across the room, worked our way into this closet. Now I'm going to show you an easy way to make cuts. First thing you have to do is make sure your pattern's going the correct way. This is a full tile. Lay another full tile directly on top of it so you know the pattern be going the right way. Take another tile and lay it up against it like this, up against the wall. You want to back it off the wall because we know we want a gap there. And just make a mark along here. This works particularly well even if this is tapered, because if you laid the tile against the wall and did that mark and cut it, it should follow that wall perfectly. Well, we're on the home stretch. We're backing out the door. We've got about 40 more tiles to put in. And it's taken us about 7 hours. Now, we're videotaping this, so you guys be the judge. This is 138 feet we put in today. So you judge your time. Figure how long it takes. I think 2 people, you know, you and your significant other, or a good buddy, a good friend, could, I think, if you've never done it before, 2 people could do this easily in a day. I'll show you the end results in just a moment. Would you like to see the final job? Check this out. This looks beautiful, doesn't it? This goes to show you anybody can do this job. Notice here I've installed my baseboard, and the crack that is left showing, I've covered with a piece of quarter round to give it a finished job. One final note you may want to consider: rent yourself a 100-pound roller and roll the entire floor. This way you'll ensure it gets a good bond. Right now, let's go in the other room and begin the plank flooring demonstration. Join me, will you? Basically, it's the same situation with plank hardwood flooring. We're going to rely on straight edges rather than a chalk line. Many of the directions say start in your longest wall with shims against the wall. But if this wall bows out, your planks are going to bow a little bit. So you're going to have problems with that. So this way, we're going to go out 3 planks this way, 3 planks this way, lay our straight edge. We've got a straight edge going across the other end. Put our square down, make sure it's nice and square. Now, if you have concrete nails, you can actually use concrete nails to pound the nails into the concrete to hold your straight edges. We're going to apply our glue. The tongue of the wood plank flooring is aiming out so we can put the reducer in it. We're going to remove this now, glue down our floor, allow it to dry for the proper amount of time, then begin our first course. We'll do that now. I want to mention, while I'm spreading this, that earlier I took the undercutting tool and cut this baseboard, this trim off from around the door so we can slide it up under there. It was real easy to use. You can use a standard saw, because the blade on a standard saw usually bends a little bit, but just lay a piece of wood down like I'm doing and go ahead and cut it off. Now, this stuff is remarkably easy to use. Smooth it out nice and even. As you can see here, it's relatively the same procedure. Applying the mastic layout procedure is all the same except for one detail. We're placing the planks up against wood first strips against the wall rather than against the straight edge. The reason for doing this, every individual plank needs a block of wood, and you have to pound each one in. They don't slide together as easily as the parquet flooring did. Also, I want to mention I've cut the tongue off several of these and halved several of these. We've cut the tongue off because we're going to roll the carpet into it rather than put a reducer on it. As you can see here, this is what a reducer is. A reducer is a piece of oak with a notch in it that the plank or the flooring slides into, and it gradually slopes towards the floor. These go in open doorways and carpeted areas where you meet carpet and other tiles. Also, we're cutting them in half because every other tile is going to be staggered. That way you won't have the joints running across the room. I also mentioned earlier using a pulling bar. This is an excellent example where you'd use this. Works terrific in tight spots. I wanted to show you one final tip. When you place these in, put the leading tongue into the adjoining panel first. That way, you only have one direction to pound in. We'll show you the end result in just a moment. This is a 75 square foot room. It's taken 3.5 hours to do it. It goes really fast once you get started. This is about the average size of an average kitchen. Well, that just about does it for today's program, everybody. I'm Bruce Lamb. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this program inspired you to go out and install some hardwood floors. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.